next step is to remove the fan. So for that, again, I have to disconnect a few plugs over here. And if you have a bad memory like I do, I normally take pictures. You see the bottom one have green wire, the top has purple and gray, something like that. So take a picture of that, and to disconnect that you push the plug and pull it apart. Same thing with the other one. Just like that. And this harness over here going to some kind of sensor on the bottom over there. So since this harness attached to the fan, I don't want to disconnect it over there. It's actually a lot easier to just disconnect this plug in my mind, just like that. And now we're good on this side. All I have to do is just there's a hose attached to the fan, so I have to take a screwdriver, pull it apart, and I will be ready to remove the fan. And we'll start looking where all of this coolant was coming from, because it's all over the fan. So again, it's hard to say, because obviously when there's a leak, fan catches the drops of the coolant and just throwing all over the engine. So we'll see. That's the next step. So over here, just take a screwdriver and just pry it out. So to remove the fan, it holds on these two tabs, one at the top, one on the bottom. So top one is just slide it up. The bottom one over here, if you're gonna see, you're gonna have to pry it up just a little bit with a screwdriver to release the lock, and now you can pull it up. Before you go all the way up, you got to do the same thing on the other side. Pry it up with the screwdriver, and pull up the fan. That's it. Now you're just going to have to wiggle through the hoses over here. Just like that. And we have it out. At this point, if you have to remove or replace the radiator, you're gonna have to remove the condenser, and the same deal. The top tab is just sliding up freely. The bottom one, you're gonna have to pry it just like that to slide it up. Same thing on the other side. On this side, you have to disconnect this main hose. I mean, maybe a good idea to pinch it if you still have some coolant in there, so you wouldn't drop it. Drain all of the coolant out of the system, unless you have an idea to actually drain the whole coolant and replace it with the fresh. And to remove this thing up, you just slide it. It just sitting freely over there in the sockets. On this side, exactly the same thing. The top tab for sliding freely. The bottom one over here, you're gonna have to pry right there to unlock. Big hose, and you're gonna have to do the return over here. This one, there's two tabs over here, and you push it, slide it out. At this point, I gotta try to test it with air to see where the air is gonna be coming from before I start disconnecting hoses. And here's the hole. I don't know if you can see it. So right away over here you actually could see that it was running for some time. And this is really strange because this magical stuff should actually take care of this, because I thought that there's somewhere maybe problem with the hose, but we have a hole in the radiator. So I still gonna inspect the hoses over here, because this one especially, on the bottom I have I don't know if the camera catches this, it has a scratch right there on the bottom. So when I'm gonna remove all of this, I'm gonna inspect the hose too. And but anyway, the bottom line, the problem was radiator, and this thing did not work. So now, since I have to remove and replace the radiator, I'm gonna go through those steps. Push and slide out. You still have some coolant in there, so make sure you have something to collect it under there. To remove this hose, you're gonna have to have either vice grips or something. Since the leak I have is at the top of the radiator over here, most likely this hose over here is full of the coolant. So you gotta be really careful. So after disconnecting this hose over here, the coolant is keeping the level, is basically drop over here and not draining. So that basically tells me that there's no other holes over here rather than just this tiny hole inside the radiator. So next step is to get the right parts and start replacing this thing. In the meantime, before I get to the store, I'm gonna remove everything so you dry a little bit, and then we'll start replacing. So now I have to pry this to lift the condenser up. Same thing on the other side. I'm gonna rest it gently over here on the bumper, front bumper. And before I remove the radiator, I need to do the last thing, this last clamp over here, which I'm gonna have a lot of coolant from here as well. Okay, so all you can try, I don't have anything good to pinch this hose over here to minimize this leak, so try just to be fast. Something like that. Now I have this hose up. At this point, to remove radiator is really simple. You just slide it up just like that. And after I created all the mess, here's a little valve to actually do it super clean. You just unscrew it, drain it over here on the driver's side bottom corner, and you're not gonna have all of this mess over here. Before you throw this radiator away, make sure you keep those sockets because new one will come without it. So that's how you remove it. Next step is installing the new one. Stick it in there. We're going to place this condenser. Click. Just like that. Click here. And at this point I can test. And at this point I'm gonna test for possible air leaks somewhere else before I actually put it back together. Got it to the maximum mark. And now I'm gonna start the vehicle to see if there's a leak. And to run it through, I'm gonna turn the heater all the way on. You're gonna run it for a while again to see over there, and the camera sketching it, but the antifreeze, that's the return line, so you should be able, again, this is not the very clean box, to see the return and going under and just going through the tube over here, through the hose on the bottom and circulating. And obviously after repairs like this, you will have a air trap somewhere inside. So you gotta run it, heater and vent, everything on the highest setting, run it through. It will push the all air from the system, and looks like it's holding the level for now. I don't see anything dripping or sprinkling or anything like that, so everything's fine back together. Again, before didn't have this hose. See this little groove over here? That makes me worry a little bit. So for right now, Ford doesn't have it in stock. It takes 2 days to get it, so I ordered it and I will replace it later. But for now, I don't see any leaks, so looks like the radiator was the problem. And I decided not to test my lock and replace this big hose over here, because this groove looks like it's not through the fabric or whatever, that fiber that goes inside this hose. But again, it's already weaker, and it doesn't cost that much to try to push through, and that's stuck somewhere in the middle of Arizona or California desert. So I'm gonna let it run for a little bit to make sure that it pushes all of the air out of the system. Keep checking this reservoir, make sure that it's circulating and the level is not dropping. I check everywhere, there's no leaks, and now I just have to retrace my steps and put everything back together. So that's how you replace the radiator on that 2024 Transit.